So in Jerry's report, we got a great review of some of the impressive things that have happened this year, made more impressive by the fact that they happened this year. This has not been a regular year in any way, shape, or form, and that's definitely been true at Northwoods as well. However, flexibility and creativity have always been two of Northwood's greatest strengths, and our transition to a very strange year of nearly all online church has been a time for those qualities to shine. We've learned a lot in this year that the church has left the building. We have been reminded of the fact that there is very little separation between the personal and the public. We are all in this together. We have learned a little bit about who we are and the things that matter the most to us, because those are the things that well, not all the things, but those are the things that we have been able to continue this year. There are some things that we deeply missed being able to do this year. We know that those things matter as well and look forward to being able to find ways to reincorporate them in the coming year. And finally, we learned how much we really do need each other. This has not been a year to go it alone, even though isolation has been a part of life for many of us. I don't know about you, but for me, being able to join with you every Sunday and to be able to regularly meet with members of various leadership and ministry teams at Northwoods definitely helped me feel less isolated and continued to feel like a part of a community. As I said, Jerry did a great job of going through some of the highlights of this year and some of our great successes. I have a few quick things that I want to highlight for us. Over 60 people participated in making music for worship this year. Over 30 people offered reflections during one of our Northwoods reflection services, which is one of the new things that we added in our online church life that I hope we can carry forward in some fashion. That is a whole lot of people. One of the things that I think is important in worship is that there are many voices that are shared because we have a shared ministry. And as challenging and frustrating as this year has been, no matter as unusual as it has been, we have done an incredibly good job at that. From our reflection services to our collaborative videos and pictures being sent in for various services, people's presence in the service has been visible. And I think that's a really important thing to remember going forward. I also want to celebrate even more the fact that we have a balanced budget. We have steady pledging and steady worship attendance throughout this year that is not less than last year's. We have as many people coming to worship now as we did when we had 2 services in the building. That is a remarkable achievement for a church in this particular year. We have a full slate of excellent folks who have been nominated to positions of leadership. Many churches are struggling to fill their leadership roles as this year has made it harder to stay connected to the congregation. That our leadership development team was able, in much effort, to accomplish this task is another sign of the congregation's good health. Even as we long to return to in-person gatherings, the state of our union is strong. I feel like annual meetings are kind of like State of the Union addresses for church. And I also want to highlight that we have 2 in-person activities that have continued pretty consistently throughout much of this year. One is the twice monthly Black Lives Matter public witness on the North Shore Park Bridge, and the other is our drumming circle. I want to give a special shout out and thanks to David Shantz, Susan Blackmore, and all the folks who worked hard to make those things happen regularly and safely for our community to gather in person. And I think it says something about who we are, that the 2 things that we have done in person this year consistently have been a drum circle, which feeds our connection to each other and our connection to the natural world, and an action of public witness that connects us to our call to social justice. I feel like that has been really revealing of the things that we value as part of our identity. And I also want to thank the leaders this year. Many of you did not sign on for a year like this. Some of you did, but many of you did not. And I thank you for all of the additional hard work that it took to lead Northwoods throughout the process of navigating all the changes and challenges that we have faced. In the grand tradition of Janus, I don't just want to look back, I also want to look forward. For the next 2 years, my work is to companion this community in our shared ministry and our mission, and support and encourage Northwoods in preparation for entering into settled ministry with a called minister. As your developmental minister, I have a wonderful job to do. The work that you hired me to, work
that I love. As we have for 3 years, we will continue to build something amazing together. Did you know that by the time Northwoods calls its next settled minister in 2023, it will have been 15 years since Northwoods last called a settled minister? So what's the difference between this settled ministry and the interim ministry and developmental ministry that Reverend Donna Renfro and I have been doing in the meantime? A transitional minister, which is both interim ministry and developmental ministry, is a contract minister, which means that I have a contract for a specified time of service, in my case, 5 years. I'm here to do a particular job, part of which is to help Northwoods prepare for settled ministry, and part of which is defined by the developmental goals that the board set when they set out to hire their developmental minister, which we've been in the process of reviewing this year. A transitional minister, whether an interim minister or developmental minister, is hired to help navigate the change between ministries to best set up the congregation for a successful search and healthy ministry with their new settled minister. Another distinction is that a transitional minister is hired by the board as opposed to hired by the congregation. The decision to hire me as your developmental minister was a decision that was voted on and approved by the board. A settled minister, on the other hand, has an ongoing relationship. The letter of agreement with a settled minister does not have a timetable or a designated end of the ministry. The ministry of a settled minister ends when either the congregation or the minister decides that it is time to move on to different things. Many settled ministries are somewhat short, 5 to 7 years. Some last as long as 25 or 30. Part of what an interim or developmental minister does is to help the congregation be ready for a healthy, long settled ministry. A settled or called minister is here to serve the congregation in long-term shared ministry rather than specific time-limited developmental goals like I am. And lastly, perhaps most importantly, a settled minister is called by a congregational vote. At the end of the search process, when your candidate has been selected, there will be a vote by the entire congregation on whether or not to call this person as your settled minister. So you'll also hear a settled minister referred to as a called minister. Their relationship is with the entire congregation as a settled and called minister. Part of my work is to support and encourage Northwoods through the process of preparing for search and going through the search process, and being in partnership with church leadership as they make decisions about what Northwoods wants next for itself. This is a brief outline of what the settlement process will look like for the next 2 years. This fall, we will continue working on assessment and integration, helping Northwoods assess readiness for settled ministry by looking at our history, how Northwoods navigates change, what our mission is and may be, and what the future will look like together with your new settled minister. In December of this year, January of next year, the board and nominating committee will begin to identify members for the ministerial search committee, who will be overseeing that search process. In spring, the congregation will vote on the search committee nominees. The ministerial search committee will be doing a lot of the legwork, but the board and leadership and the congregation as a whole will still have a role to play in the fall of 2022, which will be the process of preparing your congregational search website, your packet, your profile, that will identify both what kind of congregation Northwoods is and how it sees itself, but also what are the factors that are most desirable to you in your incoming new settled minister. In December of 2022, you will submit that congregational record to the search system and officially go into search. Your name will be in the hat. And February and March of 2023 is the process of selecting pre-candidates and interviewing them. Pre-candidates are ministers who are looking for a congregation to serve that you think might be potential good candidates for your settled ministry. Those interviews are usually done on Zoom, done on phone, and then pre-candidates that you are most interested in will come to Northwoods and spend a weekend interviewing with leadership and lead service on Sunday in what's called a neutral pulpit, a UU pulpit that is not Northwoods, so that the search committee can watch them interact with that congregation. March 31st, 2023 will be offer day. Offer day is when you will choose one of those pre-candidates to be your candidate. At this point, you'll begin to discuss contract negotiations and compensation questions and specifics with that candidate. The candidate, you'll only have one, is someone that you expect will be the person who is voted on to become your next called and settled minister. After offer day, late in April 2023, you will have what's known as candidate week, where that single top candidate will come to Northwoods, spend a whole week with you, meeting with different parts of the congregation, different ministry teams, the congregation as a whole, and lead service. At the end of that candidate week, the congregation will vote on whether they want to call that particular minister as their next settled minister. In general, we want that vote to be above 90% positive. Congregations who have a more split vote, it's a good sign that that minister may not be the ideal fit, and there may be some tension in that call, and the minister may not elect to take it. That's just sort of some insider baseball. We'll talk about all the details more as that goes on. And then August 1st of 2023 will mark the beginning of your settled ministry with your new called and settled minister. So this will be part of what we are doing together for the next 2 years. But part of the work we're doing together is also continuing to do the good work of shared ministry together, so that your next settled and called minister will enter into a joyous, thriving, healthy version of Northwoods. Part of this will be attending to our developmental goals. We have assessed our current developmental goals, and Sage at the annual meeting gave a short report to that effect. And this fall, the board will continue to review and revise those goals. That will shape some of the shared ministry work together. I have identified several areas of focus that are important for me, that I identify as things that I can help with that will help the congregation thrive. One of which is pastoral care. Mira Desi has stepped forward to help me with pastoral care as the leader of a pastoral care team. So I'm hoping to recruit and do some training so that we can have a more formalized process of providing pastoral care and spiritual support to the congregants in need. I also want to work on developing some adult spiritual growth opportunities in addition to what is currently offered. I feel like there's a lot of potential to grow in spiritual maturity, to grow in wisdom, and to grow in our connection to each other outside of Sunday morning programming. And I look forward to seeing what that will look like. This is something that is close to my heart and not really something I've been able to attend to much this year. So I'm looking forward to doing that more. And finally, I look forward to working with leadership development to continue our developmental goal of identifying and supporting strong lay leadership within the emerging leaders in the congregation. Part of my ministry with you will be continuing to live through a pandemic that has uprooted so much, including what church looks like and how we have gathered. There are big questions ahead for us, as well as change and grief and healing. The collective trauma we have lived through and the individual losses we bear will need to be named, felt, and integrated into our lives. And the resilience and strength and compassion we have found will also need to be named, felt, and integrated into our lives. This is deeply spiritual work, and we will do it together. I have always been a more fervent believer in religious community than in any particular religion or notion of divinity. We are, and always have been, here to save and support each other, and in the process find our deepest selves, which we can only do in relation with each other.